Hello, everybody. Welcome to U.S. History Assignment 6. I'm going to go over for you sort of a little mini lesson reviewing the Industrial Revolution and the labor movement for the first part of this video, and then for the second part, I'll do a read aloud of all the documents that are in here if you want that. So if you just want the mini lesson, listen to the first part. If you want the read aloud, listen to the second part. Okay, so today or this week's lesson is about the labor movement. Okay, we are going to look at, was the labor movement successful? Did it achieve goals, right? Did it help people improve the things they wanted to improve? Why or why not? Okay, so let's review real quick the Industrial Revolution and the labor movement, and then I'll get into the read aloud. So remember, the Industrial Revolution was this period from around 1860 to 1920, when the U.S. switched from making things by hand to making things like in factory. Hi, Gabby. Making things in factories, right? Using machines and that kind of stuff. And this led to a lot of problems. Like, it kind of sucked to be a worker during the Industrial Revolution, okay? It led to things like monopolies, big, powerful businesses, right, that got too powerful. Child labor, really low wages or pay. Families living in tenements, tiny apartments that were really crowded and unsanitary. And the factories and mines that they worked in were really dirty and unsanitary too. So, as a result, we had a couple different groups developed to sort of fight against these problems. One was muckrakers, journalists who tried to publish how awful these conditions were. All right, and we looked at a few of those, but mostly today what we're looking at is the labor movement. Okay, and that is a reform movement that took place during industrialization. Okay, to try to gain better rights for workers. You guys already got a little bit introduced to them, right? They formed, the ways that they sort of tried to fight for their rights were by forming unions, going on strike, using things like collective bargaining or negotiating with their bosses in big groups, right, with their unions, and sort of coming together to fight for their goals. Now, their goals were, right, you're looking to see if they're successful or not. So what they wanted to achieve was an 8-hour workday. Right, overall, just better rights for workers, but they wanted to achieve an 8-hour workday, and they wanted overtime pay if you did more than 8 hours. They wanted to end child labor, right? No children, they said, should be working in factories or mines. They wanted minimum wage laws. They wanted the government to step in, right? The government was being laissez-faire, lazy government. So they wanted the government to step in and start saying that, no, you have to pay people at least this amount of money, right? Like today, minimum wage is $15, right? You have to get paid at least $15 in New York City. And what they also wanted was days off from work. So they wanted to have weekends off, or like 2 days a week off from work, to be able to rest and spend time with their families and do the things they wanted to do. Okay, so that's the summary of sort of what we've been learning so far. Now I'm going to do explaining the instructions of the activity and the read aloud video. So, on page 2 is just a vocab guide of vocab words you may, in case they come up and you don't remember what they are, you can find their definitions here and a picture to help you. Okay? But what your assignment is you're going to read, there's 4 DBQs, okay? So you're going to answer questions about those 4 DBQs, and then there's just one question about them at the end, okay? So, what you are doing for your DBQs is you're not doing any annotations, okay? That's my gift to you. You're just giving me the answers, all right, to the questions. So your answers should be accurate and in full sentences, okay? They should be in your own words, not copied from the document, right? They should be based on what is in this document, but try to sort of rephrase what the author said in your own words, okay? For document 1, I did my own example of an answer in blue, right? But all the yellow highlighted portions are the prompts and questions that you respond to. So since you have to answer this first one, right? I did one example, you have to do another. Let's read through this document together. Okay, document 1. The question, down here in yellow, says, according to President Franklin D. Roosevelt, state 2 ways workers would benefit from the Fair Labor Standards Act passed during his administration. So let's read. In 1938, Congress passed the Fair Labor Standards Act. Below is President Franklin D. Roosevelt's description of the new law. After many requests on my part, the Congress passed a Fair Labor Standards Act. That act ends child labor, sets a floor below wages, or a minimum wage, and a ceiling over hours of labor, maximum number of hours an employee can work. Except perhaps for the Social Security Act, it is the most far-reaching, the most far-sighted program for the benefit of workers ever adopted here in any other country. Without question, it starts us towards a better standard of living and increases purchasing power to buy the products of farm and factory. Okay, so I'm looking for ways that workers benefited from this. Well, one thing that helps workers that I know that they wanted to achieve in the labor movement was they wanted to end child labor, and right here, right, it says that the act ends child labor. So that's what I wrote for my first answer. One way workers would benefit from this act was because it banned child labor. Okay, so for the second part, you tell me another way they might benefit from this act. Okay, something in this document that would be good for workers. All right, that's document 1. We do the same thing for document 2. Now, one thing I forgot to mention in the last instructions was you do get extra credit if you include outside information, maybe something from your notes or your outside knowledge in your answer. So think about that as we go along. Okay, question 2 says, based on this document, identify 2 examples of how a state action led to the improvement of working conditions. Okay, so a state action led to improvement of working conditions. Now, the document says state actions affecting working conditions. 1911, recommendations of Illinois Commissions on Occupational Disease, 1909, result in Illinois Occupational Disease Act. So it requires ventilation, sanitation, checking for fumes, and temperature. Okay. In 1911, also, Wisconsin becomes the first state to pass workmen's compensation legislation. Okay. Means laws about workers' pay or compensation. In 1911 also, the Wisconsin legislature limits hours of labor for women and children. Okay. 1911 to 1915, recommendations of New York State Factory Investigating Commission result in dozens of new laws, creating healthier and safer factory working conditions during New York's golden era in remedial factory legislation. Okay. In 1912, New York State Factory Investigating Commission requires automatic sprinklers for all floors above 7th floor of buildings, broadens regulations and inspection of workplace safety, fire escapes, safe gas jets, fireproof receptacles, escape routes, and fire drills. So all fire safety measures. In 1912, Massachusetts passes the first state minimum wage law. And in 1913, the Oregon law requires payment of overtime for workers in mills or factories who work over 10 hours a day. So from that list, give me 2 examples of how a state action improved working conditions for people. Okay. Document 3, a little more modern. It's from 2007. So, based on this Department of Labor poster, what is one way the Fair Labor Standards Act continues to affect workers? Okay, one way this law affects or changes workers and their lives. Okay, so this poster says, employee rights under the Fair Labor Standards Act. Remember, that's the one that was passed in the 30s in Document 1, and it still applies today. The United States of Labor and Wage Hour Division. Federal minimum wage. Beginning July 24th, 2007, federal minimum wage was $5.85 per hour. And July 24th, 2008, it was $6.55 per hour. July 24th, 2009, it was $7.25 per hour. So let's read through the other things that the law requires. Okay, the lower part says overtime pay. At least 1.5 times your regular rate of pay for all hours worked over 40 hours in a work week. And it says youth employment. An employee must be at least 16 years old to work in most non-farm jobs and at least 18 to work in non-farm jobs declared hazardous by the Secretary of Labor. Youths 14 and 15 years old may work outside school hours in various non-manufacturing, non-mining, non-hazardous jobs under the following conditions. No more than 3 hours on a school day or 18 hours in a school week, and no more than 8 hours on a non-school day or 40 hours in a non-school week. Think about that if you have a job. It also says, work may not begin before 7 a.m. and end after 7 p.m. except from June 1 through Labor Day, when evening hours are extended through to 9 p.m. Different rules apply in agricultural employment. For more information, visit the Youth Rules website at www.youthrules.gov. So, since this stuff is all, recently from 2007 through 2009, okay, tell me one way this law continues to affect workers today. Okay, your last document is about immigrants in the workforce. So there's kind of two documents that go together here, and the question is, according to the documents, what is one difference between immigrant workers and U.S.-born workers in the United States today? So the top document 4A, all right, is a chart that shows how immigrants are essential or important to the labor force. It says nearly 1 in 6 workers in the U.S. labor force is an immigrant. Okay, a fifth of all workers in the U.S. Accommodation and food services industries are immigrants. So essentially, there's a lot of immigrants in the workforce. Now let's look at document 4B, and we're going to use these to help us answer the question at the bottom. According to the documents, what is one difference between immigrant workers and U.S.-born workers in the United States today? Okay, so document 4B says, Donald Trump notably lambasted or verbally attacked Mexican immigrants during a Phoenix rally back in the summer of 2015. At one point in the event, he said, "They're taking our manufacturing jobs. They're taking our money. They're killing us." A new analysis of household earning power or ability to earn money by NerdWallet shows that immigrants are actually making less money than U.S.-born citizens in 45 states. In at least 29 states, U.S.-born people are earning more than immigrants by thousands of dollars. In Wyoming, which tops the list, a household led by someone born in the U.S. would have a median annual income of $59,689, compared to just $40,145 for a household headed by an immigrant. The gap is also highly pronounced in North Dakota and Nebraska at approximately $17,000. California is also present in the top 10 with a substantial $15,000 gap. So based on that, what's one difference between immigrant workers and U.S.-born workers today? Okay, your last question is, do you think the labor movement was successful? Why or why not? Okay, so you've just done these 4 documents, okay, to understand the labor movement and the outcomes of the labor movement. And I want you to answer this question by making an argument and explaining why, so giving your reason why, and giving me evidence from the documents to support your answers. All right, your answer should be 2 to 3 full sentences. Okay, do you think the labor movement was successful? Why or why not? In blue at the bottom, I have a model answer, okay, where I used the sentence starters on the side to help me write it, okay? I wrote, I think the labor movement was not successful because even though they made some improvements for workers, companies still have found new ways to take advantage of workers today. According to document 4, I'll use my evidence, right? Immigrants make up a large part of the workforce today. However, they are still paid less than U.S.-born workers by thousands of dollars in many states. Okay, so my evidence supports my answer there. So just overall, do you think they were successful? Did they achieve their goals? Did they improve rights for workers? Did they get what they wanted, right? Do you think they've done enough? It's up to you. Just use evidence to support your answer. Good luck. I miss you all dearly. Hope I can see you sometime soon.